Talk Live.
Welcome to Free Talk Cast, where we talk about issues and current events from a perspective of peace, love, and liberty. I'm Ari DeMesso, and I'm joined this week by
Nikki.
And I don't know if you are aware of this, Nikki, but since our last episode about where we talked about emotions and the importance of controlling one's emotions, but there was an election, apparently. Yeah. And what I've learned, my key takeaway from all of this is that the average person, in fact, has absolutely no control over their emotions. And I say the average person, I don't know to what extent my social media feeds are actually representative of, quote, the average person. In fact, I have higher opinions of the average person. So I immediately have to change what I just said, because I don't think my social media feeds, in fact, do represent the average person. The average person would be my coworkers at work, my non-politically active friends that I hang out with and go to the bar with and do all of these great social things with. None of them seem to be freaked out about the election. In fact, I was dreading work Wednesday night because I work with a lot of younger college kids who I was just dreading going there and hearing them talk all night about how it was the end of the world. Instead, what I found was they were just bitching about how much Elon Musk sucks, which, yeah, that's true. I'm with you there. But none of them were talking about how the world was going to end. They were anticipating World War III. That didn't happen.
Yeah, I tend to think that the average person isn't what's being represented, especially on social media. So I follow quite a few conservative pages, especially on YouTube, and they've been highlighting these, liberal meltdowns over the election results.
Which are fun, to be fair.
I've seen quite a few of those. So it was similarly to you where I'm like, oh gosh, people are really... I was almost thinking that the average person who voted Democrat was acting that way.
Right.
And it turns out that's not really the case. Per usual, it's like this kind of ultra loud minority who is being insane and posting it online.
And they did this in 2016 when Donald Trump won his election the first time. I remember watching a short video. I think this was before TikTok really took over. But there was this video of this girl, overweight, probably in her early 20s, just screaming into the camera, crying, tears running down her face, screaming that someone has to fix this, just in an absolute meltdown. And she was, of course, talking about the fact that Donald Trump had won, and she couldn't cope with it. There were college classes that had sort of support sessions the day after the election to help college kids cope with this.
Which is very inappropriate because they wouldn't have that if the Democrat person had won, right? Typically, college campuses are very liberal leaning.
That's a good point. If Kamala Harris had won, I don't think there would have been any of these, therapists coming into the campuses.
And if there were any Trump supporters who were very distraught and upset about the election results, they would probably be met with, a very cold response to that and no sympathy at all. Definitely no licensed therapists coming on campus and, no support groups.
I don't like Donald Trump at all, but it's got to be hard these days to be a Trump supporter. You're perceived as being bigoted, hostile, racist, homophobic, transphobic. The whole litany of phobias and bigotry you're accused of being simply because you like Donald Trump. Yeah. And I don't know what reasons one can have for liking Donald Trump, but I'm so unplugged from the political machinery that I would say exactly the same thing for Kamala Harris. You people who voted for Kamala Harris, why?
She's also racist.
She is. She spent most of her career sending black men to prison for selling drugs. She's a drug warrior. Mm-hmm. She's a cop. Donald Trump has his own issues, of course. I can't support either one of these. But I kind of understand why some people support Donald Trump. They bought into the mythology that he's going to save the economy or whatever.
Then there's the RFK people who were in it for RFK and Make America Healthy Again, which is kind of the people that I interact with the most, is health freedom moms.
I was shocked to learn last night that Robert Kennedy actually told people, don't vote for me, vote for Trump instead.
I was actually surprised that he was still on the ballot.
Yeah.
Because I thought he had pulled out of the election
I
because
guess
he
you probably
gave
can't.
Donald Trump his endorsement, so maybe it was too late.
Yeah, I guess you probably can't do that, but I don't know the specifics of it. I did see that the Libertarian Party candidate did appallingly bad. Like every year, I looked at it last night on the show that we did at Free Talk Live. You can listen at freetalklive.com. I went all the way back to 2012 to see the third party results of the elections. And in every single election, the Libertarian Party got about 3 times the number of votes that the Green Party did. Now, there are third parties here in the United States. There's the Libertarian Party, the Green Party, the Constitution Party, the Justice Party, and then there's some other socialism party.
Yeah.
There's a lot of them, in fact. But when it comes to third parties, the main one is the Libertarian Party. It's got the most members, it's got the most funding, it's got the most organization. Like, it's the main third party. Yet the Libertarian Party candidate, Chase Oliver, got the least amount of votes of all of the third party candidates. Even Robert Kennedy did better.
I didn't even know
Yeah.
who the candidate was for the Libertarian Party.
We had Mike Termott, the vice presidential candidate, on Free Talk Live when we were at PorkFest. Now, Chase Oliver himself, the presidential candidate, perhaps unwisely, did not go to PorkFest. I would not have liked to be the Libertarian candidate this particular election because you had so much going against you. You had Donald Trump promising to commute the sentence of Ross Ulbricht, which that's a big issue to libertarians. A lot of libertarians I know swore to vote for Donald Trump simply because of that promise, myself among them. Now, I did not vote for Donald Trump. Thank goodness. My boyfriend got sick and ended up in
Your
the hospital.
conscience is clean.
So I did not have to go and hold my nose and vote for Donald Trump. So thank God for that. So I didn't vote at all. But a lot of libertarians did. And I suspect that the reason that we see Chase Oliver's results being so bad is that a lot of those libertarians voted either for Donald Trump or for Robert F. Kennedy. Mm-hmm. It didn't help, of course, that Chase Oliver is openly gay. And libertarian Twitter is filled with allegations of him being a child groomer. Because, of course,
It's so ironic for a libertarian to be homophobic.
It is.
Like, what part of you do you and I'll do me don't these quote-unquote libertarians
But they don't consider themselves to be homophobic. They hate child groomers. And
so that's how they get around it.
Yeah, by
Okay.
miraculous design, by miraculous coincidence, it just so happens that every LGBT person they've ever encountered or seen or heard about is in their minds also a child groomer. Because they've expanded the meaning of child groomer to mean a person who tells a kid or who puts a video out there on the internet saying, hey, kids, it's okay if you're gay. They would call that person a child groomer. And that's pretty much how Chase Oliver got it. Of course, the Libertarian Party of New Hampshire is notoriously toxic these days, being headed up by Jeremy Kaufman, who I love to death as a friend. But, dude, you have got to shut the fuck up and stop tweeting. Like, disconnect. Dude, just unplug. It'd be the best thing for everyone. Anyway, he was spearheading a lot of this. The Libertarian Party of New Hampshire actually released a statement saying that Chase Oliver is not our candidate.
Really?
And that they won't support Chase Oliver.
See, I am like so disconnected from like anything political because I'm also not on Twitter, but I didn't know any of this happened.
Yeah, and the New Hampshire Libertarian Party wasn't the only one. It was the only one, as far as I could tell, that actually called Chase Oliver a faggot.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, and then they said, well, it's not because he's gay, right? It's because he's It's because he's a leftist socialist infiltrator who is, propagandizing libertarians and trying to make them leftist or whatever crazy nonsense they said.
So faggot means socialist now?
I guess if you ask Jeremy Kaufman, faggot means a person who is a leftist socialist infiltrator who happens to be gay, but it's not because they're gay that they get called a faggot. Even though they're not out there calling straight people faggots, and like to my knowledge, that's the only time LPNH has called a person a faggot openly. Guys, what the fuck is wrong with you? Get this guy off Twitter.
That's not helping the cause.
It's not one bit. The division, the lack of unity. If I was on the outside looking in and I was curious about libertarianism and I wanted to learn more about it, and I saw that you had the Libertarian Party presidential candidate and then a bunch of people in libertarian parties throughout the United States criticizing that guy, calling him a child groomer, calling him a faggot, saying they would never support this guy. and that he wasn't there kind of like, well, these guys don't have their shit together at all.
Yeah.
I'm
well,
out.
I think that's like notoriously how libertarians appear, especially from the outside, because
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, there's a lot of that. Like, that's just one example of how there's a lot of division just in libertarian communities.
Yeah. I do hope to see Donald Trump actually commute Ross Ulbricht's sentence. I do hope to see that.
I mean, he's promising some things. I mean, he just released that, I guess it would be a press release maybe, about free speech and how he's very, very concerned about censorship, especially online. And yeah, it's like a 6-minute long video.
Wow.
And I don't love using, the government to grant people rights. I believe that we just have our God-given rights and our natural rights, and the government cannot grant our rights or take them away. But I liked what he was saying in the video. Like it sounded good. We'll see if it happens.
I haven't seen that video, but from what I've seen throughout a lot of the last week, I hate to say it, but if Trump follows through on some of this stuff, it could be pretty good.
He's saying some good shit.
He is. Like Elon Musk recently, Senator, I've already forgotten his name. Some senator said that we need to end the Fed. And
cool.
Yeah, and I don't remember the senator's name, but Elon Musk tweeted it, or retweeted it, and added 100, saying, I agree, or like, this is absolutely right, basically.
Yeah.
And Elon Musk is expected to be a close advisor to Donald Trump. And Donald Trump has, in fact, in the past, mentioned ending the Fed. Or it was during one of the presidential debates where Ron Paul was there. While watching the debate, Donald Trump said, this guy makes a lot of sense and the Fed should be abolished, or something to that effect. Now, he didn't do that when he was previously president. Another positive thing that we're seeing, he wants to sack Gary Gensler of the SEC. Now, for those who don't know, the SEC has been extremely hostile to cryptocurrency since Joe Biden took office and appointed Gary Gensler in 2021. They went after Library, they went after Kraken, they went after Coinbase. Right now, there's an ongoing lawsuit against Coinbase where Coinbase is actually suing the SEC back.
Oh, okay. I didn't know they were suing them back.
Yeah, good for them for that, even though they are the devil. But
this is a whole side topic, but that's what happens when, Coinbase bent over and did whatever they were saying and then still got burnt and are still being sued by them.
Yep. Coinbase spent a bunch of money sending a bunch of lobbyists to Washington, D.C.
Yeah.
And they met with all of these federal regulatory agencies except the SEC. The SEC refused to meet with them. And then the SEC filed a lawsuit against them. Of course, Coinbase has, from the very beginning, all the way back to the first Bitcoin conferences in 2011, they were saying that they wanted to be the ones to write the regulations about cryptocurrency. So they're absolutely playing ball with the government. Mm-hmm. They're just upset that it didn't benefit them this particular occasion. So, but Trump, Bitcoin, for those who haven't been watching, it's up a lot since the election last Tuesday. I think it was at like $88,000 when I started the show today. Yeah.
I didn't know it went up that high.
It peaked at $90,000 sometime overnight. Like, it's up a lot. Dogecoin is up to like 43 cents. Everything.
Yeah, Matt told me that. It's still not too late to invest in cryptocurrency or to get yourself some cryptocurrency.
It's not too late.
And it's never too late.
I gave a ride home to a friend at work sometime last week. He wanted to pick my brain about cryptocurrency. And during the course of this, he mentioned that he had $2,000 once, and he actually thought about using it to buy Bitcoin, but he instead bought a truck.
Dude, you'd be a millionaire right now.
He knows. And he was like, oh, I wish I had bought that Bitcoin. I was like, well, dude, it's not too late, right? You're sitting here now saying you wish you had bought Bitcoin 10 years ago. I'm confident that 5 years ago, you were sitting here saying, I wish I had bought Bitcoin 5 years ago. And in 2030, you're going to be sitting there saying, I wish I had bought Bitcoin in 2024. Because these people are doing this year after year. I've been hearing these arguments since I got into cryptocurrency heavily back in 2012. I've been hearing people say, oh, I wish I had bought it X number of years ago. And then 3 years later, they will be saying the same damn thing. Well, buy it now.
I don't know many people that regret getting into cryptocurrency, or at least having some of it. You know, I know people who regret losing their crypto or losing a hard drive that had crypto on it or forgetting their password. So, like, don't be that person. Be smart and remember your password and, you know, have it on a non-custodial wallet and all of those things that we always talk about on Free Talk Live.
Yep. I do know some people who got into NFTs and they regret that. But of course, on Free Talk Live,
is that technically cryptocurrency? Because I don't think it is.
It's built on blockchain technology. So, I mean, it's not cryptocurrency, but it does require cryptocurrency in order to function.
Okay, yeah.
But here on Free Talk Live and Free Talk Cast by extension, we were against NFTs from the moment we first heard about them. We were like, this is stupid. This is a pyramid scheme. It's a bubble. Stay away from it. And we did the same thing about something else. Oh, a lot of the ICOs, the ICO bubbles of like 2018, 2017, where everywhere you looked, there were people raising money for their cryptocurrency scams. I remember in particular, there was one called Bitcoin Silver that motivated me to start a group called Crypto Check, where we would look into these ICOs and we would rate them whether they were likely to be a scam or whether they were likely to just be a terrible idea. Mm-hmm. And I learned one of the main differences was that with these scam ICOs, they didn't have an actual white paper. They had an advertising brochure that they called a white paper. But for those in the know, a white paper is a solution to a problem. It outlines the problem and it outlines the solution to that problem. If it looks more like a PowerPoint presentation, it's not a white paper. And Bitcoin Silver was an Ethereum token, an ERC20 token, and not related to Bitcoin whatsoever. And when you went to its website, the amount of time left to get into the ICO was it would randomly go back up. So it would say you have 71 hours left, and then you would check again the next day, and it would be like you have 86 hours left.
That is so sketchy.
Yeah, the whole thing was super sketchy. Their Twitter handle was Bitcoin Silver 1, and just all sorts of red flags over this. And if you find them on Twitter now, all you will find is people who have regularly been tweeting at them for the last several years. Hey, where's my Bitcoin Silver? I sent you the Ethereum. Where's my Bitcoin Silver?
Oh my God. It's so sad that people fall for that shit.
It was an obvious scam from the beginning. Yeah. But you have useless Ethereum token, which is an actual Ethereum token that someone made. They say, hey guys, this has no value. It's never going to be useful. It's never going to have any utility. It's just a useless Ethereum token. They did an ICO and they raised, I think it was millions of dollars.
Oh, really?
Millions of dollars of people buying this useless token.
A lot of the time there's so much hype around crypto and Bitcoin specifically, where if people don't know what they're talking about and they're getting bad advice, they're like, oh, whatever, I'll just buy here. And then they get burnt. And then they think all crypto is bad. But really, they just didn't understand anything about it, and they didn't do their due diligence and research, or, you know, and that so many, like, Bitcoin experts or crypto experts really don't know shit about blockchain technology or crypto. And I'm not an expert. I'm not going to pretend like I am, but I'm also not counseling people on this, you know?
Very true. It's another warning that people should keep their emotions in check. Hype and excitement are similar emotions, just like fear or dread or sorrow or anything else, that if you don't keep keep tight control over it, it can motivate you to do dangerous, risky, stupid things. Getting caught up in the hype of NFTs caused a lot of people to lose a lot of money. Getting caught up in the hype of ICOs caused a lot of people to lose a lot of money. And that's just one particular emotion and one particular example. One of the things I'm seeing as a result of Donald Trump winning the presidential election, which to my surprise, he won both the Electoral College and the popular vote. So, like,
by a landslide.
Yeah, he definitively won this election.
So, not to get off topic, but did you see that stat where it has the number of people who voted in the presidential election over the past 5 or 6 elections? So the last election where he lost had 30 million more voters. So essentially saying that whole conspiracy where they stole the election was true.
It's possible. Kamala Harris did a lot worse than Joe Biden in all of the states, all of them, all 50 states, she did worse than him. And I suspect that's because, one, she's not a particularly motivating individual. I don't think Democrats are particularly inclined to be excited about Kamala Harris or to go out and vote for her.
I mean, some people liked her just because she was a woman,
They
but
did.
that didn't work for Hillary either. You have to bring more to the table
Yeah.
than being a woman. Like, that's not good enough.
But I think, and I've not heard anyone else agreeing with this take, but I think where the Democratic Party went wrong was that Kamala Harris wasn't necessarily the successor for Joe Biden. Now, if President Biden died, Kamala Harris would take over. But that doesn't necessarily mean that when Joe Biden steps down from candidacy, that the person who was to be his vice presidential candidate was to take his place. It probably should have been the person in second place in the Democratic primary.
It should have been, yeah.
Instead of Kamala Harris.
But I didn't see a lot and like I said, I'm kind of like disconnected, but I didn't see a lot of Democrats complaining about that.
I didn't either.
What I did see was some Democrats kind of excusing it.
Yeah.
But
I saw that as well, and I didn't see too many complaining about it, but it had to feel bad that they voted for this guy, this candidate, and then the Democratic establishment was like, no, we don't want you to have this guy. You have this lady instead.
Yeah.
So that can't feel good. And of course, the Democratic establishment did the same thing in 2016 when they essentially, the super delegates, which was a system I didn't even know existed prior to 2016, decided, no, we don't like Bernie Sanders. We want Hillary Clinton. And Hillary Clinton got the Democratic nomination instead of Bernie Sanders, who probably wouldn't have won it anyway, but he had zero chance of winning because of this super delegates situation.
And honestly, people like Bernie.
They do. I think he probably would have beaten Donald Trump this election.
A lot of young people really liked Bernie. I think he would have had a better chance than Hillary. I mean, obviously, he won the primary.
Yeah.
Technically, right?
Yeah,
the
I think
popular
so.
vote, at least, for the Democratic candidate.
So it's a mess out there. And I want people to stop freaking out. A longtime friend of mine, Brian Ellison, longtime audacious libertarian, good dude, was posting, I'm hopeful that things aren't going to be as bad as I think they're going to be. And like, dude, will you stop? Stop this fear-mongering.
That's a weird roundabout way to be hopeful.
It is. That's not hopeful at all. And one of my follow-ups to that was like, guys, I think Biden's about to start World War III. The U.S. dollar is going to tank. You know, gay people are going to get rounded up. They're going to start just killing children at the border. I hope I'm wrong.
Yeah, like, okay, after you just
happen,
manifested all of that, right? Yeah.
It's like, dude, it's hard for me to take you seriously when you say stuff like that. When you say these unhinged, crazy things and then say, well, I hope I'm wrong. Okay, but you still believe all of that stuff is going to happen, right? And that's not good. To my amazement, someone commented on one of my things saying, I think Biden is going to start World War III in order to tank the U.S. dollar so that Republicans have no chance of winning in 2028. And like, I was stunned by that I responded, sure, this is a joke, right? Like, surely you don't actually believe that. But no, this person actually believes that Joe Biden that the establishment, that the Democratic establishment or Joe Biden or Kamala Harris is so unhinged and so crazy and so evil that they would intentionally tank the dollar and start World War III just to keep a Republican from winning in 2028.
Yeah. And even if that was the case, I just don't see why it would be beneficial to like think those thoughts all day long and put that out into the ether and comment it all over Facebook. I just think our attention is so much more useful. I mean, really the only thing we can control is our own lives, our own actions, our own words, and how we treat other human beings. So that is what we can control. I can't control what Joe Biden is going to do. So am I going to sit here and worry about Joe Biden in World War III? No. Am I going to prepare my family and my community in any way that I can? Of course. I try to be well prepared for anything.
Yeah.
But I'm not going to sit here and think about it.
Yeah,
you know?
That's a beautiful sentiment.
I mean, I guess we are thinking about it, but we're just discussing whatever, more proactive, productive ways.
Right. We're thinking about it and we're using it as an example of how
Yeah.
not to live your life. Right?
Yeah.
Don't live your life in that state of panicked hysteria over things that you cannot control.
I mean, that also just sucks.
Yeah.
Being fearful, being depressed, being anxious, that is a terrible existence. And I know to a certain degree, you know, people are going to experience depression and anxiety and, you know, certain mental health concerns, of course, but I genuinely do believe that we do have a certain level of control and power over our emotions.
Yep. I've got to call out someone here, Will Coley. I unfriended him earlier today on Facebook because he shared a meme where he said that he had yet to see any LGBTQ person not having a complete meltdown over the election results. And I'm like, dude, we did a show together for like 4 years, man. Like, I lived with your family, right?
Also, I know so many gay people and trans people who aren't, like, I could literally name 5 that I follow online who are either happy about the election results or just kind of indifferent.
Yeah, I would say I'm indifferent about it. I'm hopeful in regard to commuting Ross Ulbricht's sentence, and I'm hopeful about the future of cryptocurrency. But beyond that, like, it has no impact whatsoever on my life, and it's not going to. But below that was another lady who agreed with the sentiment, saying that she had to stop on the way to work. She had to pull over because she was having a panic attack so bad because of the results of the election that she couldn't drive to work. So she pulled over and starts having this panic attack. Someone called the police because they thought she was in distress, and she then noted on Twitter that her panic attack got worse because she saw that it was a cis white male cop coming to, quote, help her. And I don't know what is wrong with these people. If the election results are causing you so much stress and anxiety that you're having panic attacks on the way to work, for the love of all that is good, turn your phone off.
Yeah.
Turn off your television.
Contact a therapist because someone like that needs legitimate help.
Yeah.
Like, they need mental evaluation.
But I can't blame them for being in that state of hysteria. My mind goes to Greta Thunberg, the climate change activist who is a victim of fear-mongering.
Yeah.
Her entire life, she's been told that the
Yeah.
climate is getting destroyed and it's an apocalypse waiting to happen and she's going to die and everyone she knows and loves is going to die and the world is going to come to an awful,
Yeah.
horrible, fiery end.
I mean, she said, my childhood has been stolen from me.
Yeah, but it wasn't by climate change. It was by the people who pounded this fear into her until she was so traumatized by it that she can't think about anything else. Her parents pointed out that she's obsessed with it. It's all she ever thinks about. Well, why is that? It's because you pounded this fear into her to an extent that it became crippling. And as someone who was raised in an extremely religious background, I know exactly what that's like. The threat of hellfire and eternal damnation was so real in me that I honestly, in the 3rd grade, I asked a friend of mine to stand in front of me and say, "Get behind me, Satan," to cast the demons out of me because I thought I was sinful and going to hell. That
Wow.
level of fear that you beat into children, it impacts them in a way that we cannot even begin to understand. So when this girl's schools are constantly talking about climate change and her parents are always talking about climate change, she became traumatized and it became an obsession because she's scared to fucking death about it and nothing can make that fear go away. And we see the same thing in this girl who had to have a panic attack on the way to work because the election results, because she's been plugged into Twitter and Odyssey and whatever social media platform she's using, where TikTok probably, where she's hearing all of this fear-mongering nonsense. We saw this in 2016 as well, where college students sat around in classrooms having a circle jerk about how awful things were going to be. These people really thought that gay people were going to be rounded up and thrown in the ovens. One person, an actual journalist, I think it was for the New York Times, it may have been the Washington Post, but it was an actual journalist from a allegedly reputable news source, wrote an article with a headline to the effect of, I'm disabled. Imagine what the Trump administration is going to do to me.
And it's just crazy because if you listen to anything Donald Trump is saying, He's not saying any of these things.
No, he's not.
He's not coming after disabled people. He's not coming after trans people. The one thing he said in regard to that was that he was coming after the medical industry who is giving puberty blockers and hormones to children under 18. But adults still free to do whatever they want.
Yeah.
So
I don't
other
know
than
anything
that,
he said about that particular
I
topic.
can't think of anything like
Yeah.
he's not coming after gay people. He's not really saying anything racist. I just think that these people are living in an echo chamber
Yep.
of hysteria, and they're just kind of parroting these sentiments back and forth, and most of them are false.
They are. But that's exactly what's happening. And like an echo chamber, it creates this sort of feedback loop where they just become more and more afraid, more and more hysterical, and they parrot these things, as you said, to one another, and they lose total perspective
Yeah.
on the actual events in the world that are happening around them. Like, you're going to be fine, people. You're going to make it through the next 4 years just fine. Your world is not going to end. You're not going to be put to death. The dollar is not going to collapse. Everything is going to continue for the next 4 years pretty much exactly as it has for the last 4 years. And to me, that's the problem. That's the exact issue. And that's why America keeps getting worse, because it always continues along that same damn path. But it will continue on that same path. Nothing is going to change. The world's not going to end. World War III is not going to start. Biden's not going to do anything petty to ruin Republican chances in 2028. And Donald Trump isn't going to end the world. Everything is going to be all right.
Yeah. And even if it's not, your panic attack isn't going to help it.
Excellent point. Well, that does it for this week's episode. That's the important takeaway. Nikki, you're absolutely right. Even if it's not going to be okay, panicking about it, it's just not going to help. Thanks for listening. Subscribe over at freetalkcast.com.